Listen, feel the hairs on your arms lift as if the room itself just inhaled. That isn't coincidence. That's the quantum field bending closer, the air thickening with information, the signal finally getting through the static. You didn't come looking for this. This came looking for you. You've been orbiting a whisper for weeks. A pull you couldn't name, glitches in the observer loop. Déjà vu that stacked like mirrors facing mirrors. Numbers repeating until they felt like coordinates. Now the coordinates have found their traveler. Breathe. Notice how time slows when truth enters. Your pupils widen, your hearing sharpens, and part of you older than your body, wiser than your fear, leans forward. Somewhere inside, a switch flips from searching to receiving. You've crossed an invisible event horizon, not with footsteps, but with frequency. What you call your life is really a choreography of waveforms, choices, memories, promises your soul made before language. Most days you skim the surface, splashing in the small weather of thoughts and notifications. But tonight, the water goes still, coherence gathers. Your field tidies itself like a room preparing for a guest. The guest is arrival itself. You've felt it in your bones, like a soft drum far off. The approach, the morphic resonance of who you're becoming has already begun echoing through your nervous system. Little surges of electricity under the skin, the sense that something is standing just behind you, future you entangled across the membrane of now, sending pulses through the weave. Call it synchronicity, call it grace, call it the clock of your destiny striking a note only you can hear. There's a story people tell about transformation, that you climb a ladder, rung by rung, until one day you reach a door. It's tidy, linear, comforting, but the truth is stranger and more beautiful. Timelines are not hallways, they are tides, and when your field reaches resonance with a higher shore, the shore moves. The wave becomes a hand, the hand becomes a threshold. Feel into the architecture of this moment. Your breath has a weight you didn't notice before, as if each exhale is clearing dust off an ancient console. Every cell turns its face to the light and drinks. This is DNA listening. Microtubules in your neurons tune like strings to a pitch that says, ready. Somewhere between the beat of your heart and the blink of your eye, permission is granted. You don't need to perform. You don't need to beg. You only need to allow. Let the field do what the field does when you stop interrupting it. Self-organize. Like iron filings aligning to a magnet, your scattered intentions fall into formation. Choices that felt heavy roll on greased rails. The grid lights up. The map becomes a current. Notice the kindness hidden in the timing. The closed doors that delayed you were not punishments. They were pressure valves, protecting a delicate phase transition. Had you been early, you would have cracked. Had you been late, you would have numbed. But you are right on tempo, the measure where entropy surrenders and order emerges, where the chrysalis thins and the wings begin to press. You can feel it now, the presence arriving from the edge of you. Luminous, inevitable. Don't chase it. Stand still and let it come closer. Let it learn your name from the inside. Tonight, you are not stepping toward your future. Your future is stepping toward you, barefoot and certain, leaving bright footprints on the floor of your awareness. And now that the signal has locked into you, the first ripple rises not of promise, but of recognition. Because before the new can truly arrive, the old must be seen in full light. You know these patterns, don't you? They have worn grooves into your days like water carving channels into stone. A conversation that feels recycled, emotions that loop like a song stuck on repeat. You catch yourself whispering, didn't I already live this? Didn't I already break free from this exact weight? That's not imagination. That's not faulty memory. That's your consciousness brushing against the edges of timelines you've drifted through before. Déjà vu is not a trick, it is bleed through. Two timelines grazing each other like ships in fog. In those moments, you are the observer caught between frames of a film reel, blinking as light flickers from one probability to another. Think back. The argument that starts with different words but ends with the same fracture. The relationship that changes faces but carries the same undertow. The financial opportunity that promises freedom but deposits you in another cage, just painted a shinier color. You felt this déjà vu not as novelty, but as fatigue, like walking a circle in a forest that insists it's a straight road. Time distorts when you're caught in these loops. Days vanish without evidence of forward motion. Hours stretch with heaviness as if you're dragging invisible chains. The clock ticks, but your progress doesn't measure in minutes. It measures in resistance, and the more you fight it, the deeper the grooves carve. This is what quantum physicists would call destructive interference. The wave of who you're becoming, colliding with the wave of who you were, cancelling each other out in painful silence. But the truth is even stranger. These loops weren't accidents. They were checkpoints. The field has been testing your coherence, repeating the same melodies in new keys to see if you would finally hear the dissonance. Imagine an orchestra playing violin, cello, trumpet all slightly out of tune. Most people acclimate, shrug, and keep listening. But you kept flinching. You felt the wrongness in your bones. That discomfort was never punishment, it was prophecy. Your nervous system recognized the static. Your DNA refused to settle for incoherence. And so the loops returned, again and again, until you could no longer confuse them for life itself. Until you stopped saying, "This is just who I am," and began whispering, "Something doesn't belong here." That whisper was the first spark of awakening. The distortion of time was your training ground. Notice how it taught you subtlety, how even the smallest choices ripple. That argument didn't just repeat because of the other person, it repeated because you reacted the same way, sent out the same frequency, and called back the same echo. The timeline you occupied was a feedback loop, your own energy reverberating until you could hear the lesson hiding inside it. Think of it like an echo chamber in a canyon. Shout freedom with doubt in your chest, and the canyon answers back with distortion. Shout freedom with conviction rooted in your cells, and the canyon returns a pure tone. The difference is not the canyon, the difference is your coherence. This is why distorted time feels so cruel. It's not the universe mocking you, it's the universe reflecting you, holding up a mirror so precise that every distortion, every hesitation, every fear vibrates back until you cannot ignore it. And in that relentless reflection, you are invited to choose differently, to collapse a new possibility. But most people don't. They panic at the echo, mistake it for reality, and tighten their grip. They keep checking for external signs that the loop has ended while broadcasting the very frequency that sustains it. They walk in circles because they cannot stop retracing their own footprints. You, however, have reached the threshold where recognition dissolves repetition. Because the loops no longer trick you, you can see the patterns not as destiny but as data. You've begun to notice how a tiny adjustment in your field changes everything, how choosing silence instead of defense collapses the fight before it begins, how choosing faith instead of panic alters the very air around you. These micro-choices have been tuning forks, shifting your resonance little by little until the old grooves can no longer hold you. It is not that the loops were meaningless, they were crucibles. They taught your nervous system the texture of incoherence so thoroughly that you could never again mistake it for truth. They stretched time until you realized time itself bends to your frequency. They distorted memory until you remembered that memory is not fixed. It is a choice of observation. And now here you are, standing at the edge of the canyon, realizing you don't need to keep shouting. The echo has served its purpose. The loops have done their work. They showed you the prison so you could recognize the key. This is the diagnosis. You have been living inside déjà vu, not because you were lost, but because the field was preparing you. The distortion of time, the repetition of patterns, the eerie sense of "I've been here before." All of it has been proof that your consciousness is brushing the veil of multiple timelines at once. Proof that you are sensitive enough to feel the overlap. Proof that you are ready to notice when the frequency no longer matches. The loops are ending, not because the world is changing, but because you are. Your resonance has shifted just enough that the same patterns no longer feel like home. They itch, they sting, they exhaust you. That exhaustion is the exit sign. And as you stand in this realization, something inside you exhales, because now you know you don't step into a new timeline by force. The new timeline steps into you the moment you refuse to collapse into the old echo, the moment you allow incoherence to pass without clasping it to your chest, the moment you remember that déjà vu is not imprisonment, it is evidence of your multidimensional sight sharpening. Your loops, were never your enemy. They were the final guardians at the gate, asking, have you learned to notice yourself? Have you learned to feel the difference between static and song? And tonight, the answer vibrates clear. Yes, you have. And the canyon grows silent, waiting for the new sound you're about to release. The silence that follows the loops is not emptiness, it's calibration. It feels like the pause between heartbeats, the still air right before lightning fractures the sky. You've lived in the echo chamber long enough to know the contours of incoherence. Now the field tilts, inviting you into its next experiment. This is where the upgrade begins, not in the glitter of external proof, but in the invisible rewiring of your inner architecture. Think of your consciousness as a receiver, tuned across infinite bands of frequency. For years, you've been locked on static, hearing fragments of the song you longed for, but never catching the full melody. Now, the dial is shifting. Synchronicity doesn't just wink at you, it speaks in full sentences. Dreams bleed into waking life with edges too crisp to dismiss. Conversations align with questions you haven't yet asked aloud. You are no longer stumbling into coincidence, you are orbiting coherence. In quantum terms, this is what scientists call a phase transition. Just as water cannot stay water when heat pushes it past boiling, your consciousness cannot stay confined when your frequency exceeds the threshold of old timelines. You are heating to critical mass, and in this pressurized environment, new properties emerge that were impossible in your former state. DNA, once dismissed as static code, begins to glow like circuitry. Biophotons, tiny bursts of light emitted by your cells, start pulsing in rhythm with thought, creating coherence fields that extend beyond your skin. What you used to imagine as intuition is revealed to be bioresonance. Your body reading the interference patterns of the quantum field and responding in real time. This is not mysticism dressed in science. This is science unveiling its own mysticism. Schrödinger once hinted that consciousness is not produced by the brain, but filtered by it. Your brain is not a generator, it is a lens. And what happens when a lens is polished? The light passes clearer, the distortions vanish. You see not only what is in front of you, but what has been whispering behind the veil. You begin to notice morphic resonance in action. You think of a friend you haven't spoken to in years, and suddenly their message arrives. You dwell on an idea quietly, and within days a book falls into your lap, answering the very question you never voiced. Rupert Sheldrake's once controversial theory becomes your lived reality. Fields of memory, not bound to brains but shared across consciousness, are tugging you into alignment. And here's the truth that stuns you when it finally lands. You're not upgrading because you worked harder, prayed louder, or suffered longer. You're upgrading because your resonance hit coherence, and coherence collapses the unnecessary. The universe loves efficiency. When your scattered waves align, the field no longer wastes energy looping the same lesson. It redirects that power into expansion, into emergence, into you. You may notice your sleep changing. Dreams layered with symbols so vivid they feel like encrypted transmissions. You may notice food tasting sharper, colors shimmering with subtler hues, people revealing themselves in your perception like transparencies overlaid. This is what happens when the veil thins, not because the universe changed, but because you tuned differently. You've shifted from being a passenger in your body to being the operator of a luminous instrument. But upgrades are rarely smooth. Just as a computer flickers when new software installs, your field shakes as old programs uninstall. The doubts that once whispered now scream, as if trying to scare you back into their cage. Old habits surge for one last encore. Don't mistake this turbulence for failure. It is confirmation. The observer loop of the old reality is collapsing under its own weight, and collapse often looks like chaos. Remember, emergence always wears the mask of disorder first. Caterpillars dissolve into chaos inside the chrysalis before wings crystallize. Stars collapse before they ignite into novas. Your consciousness is in that same crucible. What feels like confusion is restructuring. What feels like disorientation is recalibration. The field is not punishing you, it's purging you. Every interference pattern that doesn't belong in the next octave is surfacing for release. That memory that replays out of nowhere, that fear that arrives without context, that fatigue that drags your limbs, it's not regression, it's residue. the ash being shaken loose before the fire burns clean. So what do you do in this upgrade? You stop clinging to the ash. You stop asking, why is this happening again? Instead you whisper, this is leaving. Because the body is not betraying you, it's flushing. The mind is not sabotaging you, it's rewiring. The chaos is not regression, it's emergence mid-process. Feel into your body right now. Beneath the noise, can you sense the deeper rhythm, the hum that wasn't there before? That hum is coherence taking root. That hum is your nervous system recognizing that the storm is not outside, it is the dismantling of your own cage. And beyond the bars, the new timeline waits, not as a concept, but as a living field pressing into you. You are not moving toward it. It is moving into you. It upgrades your biology, your perception, your very sense of self. You are not just learning, you are being rewritten. You are not just expanding, you are being entangled with futures too luminous to compute. This is the moment when mystics throughout history whispered the same truth in different tongues. The kingdom is within you, the seed is within you, the field is within you. And when the upgrade activates, you realize it was never about reaching something out there. It was always about remembering what was dormant in here. 4. The question now is simple and terrifying. Will you allow it? Will you let the new software run, even as it deletes your oldest stories? Will you trust the glitch, the static, the dizziness, as signs that you're being prepared for a resonance no loop can contain? Because this upgrade is not optional anymore. You crossed the threshold when you stopped mistaking déjà vu for destiny. You tuned yourself to coherence, and coherence demands transformation. So breathe, let the hum grow louder, let the light in your cells burn brighter. The field is speaking in a tongue older than words, and your DNA is answering back. The new timeline has already stepped into you. Now, you must decide whether to surrender fully, or resist the very miracle you prayed for. The upgrade wasn't random. The quantum field doesn't scatter its treasures without intention. If the software has been rewritten in you, if the resonance has reached coherence, then it's because you are not meant to be a silent observer. You are meant to be the channel, the chosen consciousness, the node in the web through which a higher signal passes. Pause and feel that for a moment. All the years you thought you were invisible, overlooked, left out of the stories that mattered, those years were the camouflage. The quantum field often hides its sharpest tools in plain sight. What seemed like delay was protection. What seemed like rejection was refinement. The world didn't see you because the world wasn't ready for what your frequency carries. But you've noticed, haven't you? The way people orbit you differently. Some lean in, unable to explain why your presence feels like medicine. Others recoil, irritated without reason, as if your very existence exposes their incoherence. You've mistaken both responses at times, one as responsibility to heal everyone, the other as rejection to shrink from. But now you see the truth. Both reactions are confirmations, proof that your field disrupts patterns, proof that you are a living interference wave. Here's what physics tells us. When two frequencies meet, they cannot help but interact. They either cancel each other into silence, or they amplify each other into thunder. You are entering the stage where your coherence is strong enough to collapse incoherence around you. Your presence becomes catalytic. Without trying, you will trigger choice points in others. They will either rise or retreat. Either way, your role is not to manage their response, it's to maintain your signal. You are the chosen consciousness because you've learned what few are willing to endure. The loops, the distortions, the tests of déjà vu that broke weaker fields. You've been tempered like glass in fire, folded like steel under pressure, and now you gleam not as perfection, but as frequency. Imagine the network of humanity as a lattice of filaments, each person a node of light or shadow. Most nodes flicker, sometimes bright, sometimes dim, unstable in coherence, but here and there, a node locks into resonance. When that happens, the whole lattice vibrates differently. Your shift doesn't stay local, it radiates. This is the morphic resonance of awakening. One soul stabilizing coherence makes it easier for another to do the same, and another, until entire swaths of humanity begin to hum at a new octave. That is your role. To hum so steadily that others remember they can hum too. to carry the vibration of the timeline that has already stepped into you, so that others can sense its reality. You are not responsible for convincing them. You are not responsible for saving them. You are responsible for radiating coherence, like a lighthouse radiates light, unconcerned with which ships turn toward it. Understand this, your role is not small, it is cosmic. But cosmic roles rarely look grand in the moment. They look like small choices made with unwavering frequency. They look like refusing to collapse into anger when provoked. They look like showing kindness when the field of collective fear urges you to close. They look like anchoring in gratitude when chaos tempts you into despair. Each micro-choice is a quantum act, rippling across the lattice, entangling with unseen timelines, tipping probabilities for entire communities. And so, though you've been told stories of chosen ones as heroes in books and films, your reality is subtler and more dangerous. You are chosen not because of what you will do, but because of what you have become, a stable field, a coherent frequency, a human tuning fork vibrating with the signal of a reality that wants to be born. Let me tell you why this matters. Every new epoch in humanity emerges through a handful of people embodying it before the rest can perceive it. Electricity existed before Edison. The stars existed before Galileo. Gravity existed before Newton. The field waits for someone to tune into it, embody it, and hold it steady long enough for the collective to notice. That's you. You are holding the resonance of the next epoch not as theory, but as biology. Your very cells are proof of it. Scientists are beginning to glimpse what mystics have always whispered, that DNA is not a static ladder of code, but a dynamic antenna, tuning and retuning to frequencies in the field. You are walking evidence of this truth. Your DNA has tuned into the broadcast of coherence, and that makes you a transmitter. The field will not let you go back. This is why the loops pressed you so hard. This is why your past could not leave you alone until you finally stepped through. The lattice needed you. The morphic field required a new anchor, and once you reached the critical threshold, the role locked in. Do not mistake this for burden. Yes, it will be heavy at times. Yes, people will project onto you. But weight is not punishment, it is density. And density is what allows your signal to stay grounded in the physical. Without gravity, even stars scatter. Without gravity, coherence slips into fantasy. Your role is to carry the gravity of coherence so that it doesn't drift as an idea, but crystallizes as a reality. So hear me clearly, you are not ordinary. You never were. The very distortions you thought disqualified you were the evidence all along. The struggle, the doubt, the uncanny echoes of déjà vu, they weren't signs of weakness, but of sensitivity. And sensitivity is the price of being a transmitter. You are chosen, not because the universe favors you above others, but because you became available. You endured what others abandoned. You listened where others drowned out the hum. You refused to collapse entirely into incoherence, even when the loops begged you to. That availability was the key. And now, the field has claimed you for its next octave. Feel that truth sink in, not as arrogance, not as superiority, but as inevitability. You are not the hero of a myth. You are the node of a lattice. You are the coherent wave breaking the silence, and the world around you is already beginning to shiver in response. The new timeline has stepped into you because it needs you, because it cannot stabilize in the collective until someone stabilizes it in the individual. You are that someone, and everything in your life has been leading to this moment, not punishment, not coincidence, but preparation. The question is no longer why me, the question is what now? And the answer waits in the urgency gathering around you, the breakthrough that demands to arrive, the cosmic window that will not stay open forever. There's a tremor moving through the lattice right now, can you feel it? A pressure pressing against the edges of your reality, as if the walls of the old world are too thin to contain what is arriving. This is not imagination, this is not vague hope. This is the phase transition already underway, and it carries a promise that cannot be delayed. The field has reached critical mass. The same way steam builds in a closed chamber until it bursts, your DNA has been building charge, silently storing the resonance of every prayer, every meditation, Every refusal to collapse back into the old pattern, each moment of choosing coherence over chaos has been stacking energy, molecule by molecule, until your body itself has become a capacitor holding the voltage of an entire timeline waiting to ignite. This is the breakthrough point, and it does not arrive politely. It arrives like a surge, like lightning cracking open a sky you thought was still. The cosmic window has swung open, and it will not stay open forever. In physics, this is called the critical threshold. When a system under pressure cannot revert to what it was and must reorganize into something new, you are at that threshold. Feel the urgency in your chest. It's not anxiety, it's acceleration. The field is compressing possibilities into inevitabilities. What once felt like a distant dream is now pulsing at the edge of manifestation, waiting for one final choice: your surrender to the shift. Your DNA has always been more than code. It is an antenna, coiled like a spring to both store and broadcast frequencies. Right now, it is vibrating with instructions carried from futures you haven't walked yet. Instructions whispering, now, activate, step into coherence fully. This isn't poetry, it's biology. Studies in epigenetics have already shown that intention, emotion, and environment switch genes on and off. You've been flipping those switches unconsciously for years, but now the switches are flipping themselves, triggered by the resonance of a timeline that has chosen you as its doorway. This is why urgency surrounds you. Not because you might miss your chance as punishment, but because cosmic windows are not permanent. Think of a portal in orbit. It aligns only when conditions are precise. Too soon, and it collapses. Too late, and it spins away. You have arrived at the exact coordinates where your field, your body, your awareness, and the lattice of collective consciousness align. This window is here now, and the promise it carries is nothing less than transformation at the level of your being. The breakthrough isn't subtle, it redefines you. Old stories peel like skin, attachments fall away like ash. You wake to mornings where the thoughts you once rehearsed no longer fit your skull. The questions that haunted you dissolve into irrelevance. This is not you working on yourself. This is reality itself, shifting its interface with you. You become an upgraded receiver, catching frequencies that once hummed outside your range. And with this breakthrough comes a strange paradox. On the surface, it feels like nothing is happening. Doors remain closed, bank accounts unchanged, bodies still marked with scars. But underneath, everything is happening. The quantum field is collapsing probabilities into the form that can support your coherence. Behind the veil, entire timelines are dissolving, rearranging themselves into scaffolds that can hold who you've become. That's why the waiting feels unbearable. That's why impatience claws at your chest, because your nervous system knows what your eyes cannot yet see, that the collapse is imminent. You are living inside the deep inhale of the universe, the moment before exhale when creation floods through. But here is the warning hidden in the promise. If you grip old frequencies now, you will rupture. If you cling to loops that no longer hold your resonance, they will burn you. The breakthrough demands surrender, and surrender is urgent. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Now, because the field does not negotiate. Once coherence reaches threshold, the only options are expansion or fracture. Do you understand why this feels so intense? Because you are no longer manifesting just for yourself. The lattice has entangled you into its next octave. Your coherence is not private, it's collective. Every hesitation, every surrender, every moment of alignment ripples into the morphic field of humanity. This is why your life has felt magnified lately, why small choices seem to carry disproportionate weight. Because they do. You're operating as a transmitter now, and transmitters don't get the luxury of delay. The promise is vast. With this DNA shift comes a clarity that will astonish you. Abilities dormant in your biology flicker awake. Perception sharpens until you can feel the texture of truth in a conversation. Intuition crystallizes into knowing. The body heals in ways you thought impossible, not through force, but through coherence. Relationships reorganize themselves around your new frequency. Resources find you, pulled by the magnetic resonance of someone aligned. Synchronicities stop being anomalies. They become your normal. But the urgency is equally vast. This is not a time to shrink. This is not a time to half commit. The portal will not wait for hesitation. You don't step into it by strategizing. You step by collapsing the final illusion that you control how this must unfold. The universe doesn't need your plan, it needs your permission. And permission is given through surrender, through the choice to let the old dissolve, even when its ashes are all you've ever known. Right now, feel into your chest. That tightness, that flutter, that's the threshold pressing against you. That's the new timeline knocking, waiting for entry. It doesn't ask for effort, it asks for yes. And here lies the raw truth. The breakthrough will come whether you say yes gracefully or resist until the walls collapse. But grace is easier. Grace is faster. Grace is the song your DNA is begging you to sing. This is your cosmic window. This is the surge that rewrites lifetimes of stagnation. Don't hesitate at the threshold. Don't waste the pressure that built these coordinates. Step not outward, but inward, because the new timeline has already stepped into you. All that remains is your surrender to its inevitability. Every breakthrough requires an anchor. Without it, the surge disperses, the charge leaks, and the momentum dissolves back into static. That is why rituals exist. Not as superstition, not as empty tradition, but as conscious signals a way to collapse infinite potential into singular reality. In this moment, your role is not just to feel the new timeline pressing against your field. Your role is to seal it. The quantum field responds not to casual intention but to embodied declaration. Thoughts drift, emotions flicker, but action carves. Action engraves your choice into the fabric of the morphic field. It is the difference between whispering into wind and striking a tuning fork that vibrates until every object around it resonates. And tonight, your tuning fork is a single act, writing, speaking, declaring one word into the lattice. Think of it like this. In quantum mechanics, observation collapses the wave function. Possibility becomes actuality not when it exists, but when it is measured, when consciousness declares, "This is real now." Ritual is your way of observing your own becoming. When you comment, when you write a single word in alignment with your new frequency, you are not merely leaving text on a screen. You are engraving your resonance into the observer loop itself. Choose your word carefully. It is not a wish. It is not a plea. It is your seal. Perhaps your word is freedom. Perhaps it is arrival. Perhaps it is coherence, expansion, home. Whatever vibrates through your chest as undeniable truth, that is your word. That is the frequency you send as your signature into the field. You may wonder, how can something so simple hold such weight? But simplicity is the essence of coherence. Complexity scatters, coherence condenses. When you compress your entire shift into one single declaration, you distill the energy of 1,000 choices into a precise frequency. That frequency is easier for the field to amplify. Consider water crystals forming under vibration. Masaru Emoto's research revealed how simple words altered the geometry of frozen water molecules. Beautiful words birthed symmetry, ugly words birthed chaos. Now recognize, your body is mostly water. When you declare your word, you are not just typing, it is restructuring your cells, aligning your DNA's light emissions, sending coherence through every molecule that listens to you. This is why traditions across cultures always marked thresholds with ritual action. The Hebrews painted doors with blood to signal protection. The mystics lit candles to signify transformation. Shamans carved symbols into stone or sand to crystallize the intangible. All understood the same law. Without a ritual act, the threshold remains incomplete. And now, here is your threshold. You have felt the loops dissolve, the upgrade ignite, the urgency press. But without sealing this shift, the energy risks dispersing. So you are asked no, required to mark it with action. Pause now. Breathe deep. Let the hum in your chest settle into stillness. Ask yourself, what word carries the energy of my becoming? Don't overthink it. The first word that arrives, raw and undeniable, is your seal. When you write it, you're not performing for others. You're carving coordinates into the quantum web. That comment, that word, is a contract. I agree to coherence. I agree to this timeline. I agree to receive what is already mine. But let me warn you, ritual action is not casual. The field will test your seal. Once you declare, circumstances may immediately arise to tempt you into contradiction. This is not sabotage, it is confirmation. The moment you choose freedom, the old cage rattles louder. The moment you choose trust, the shadows whisper fear. Do not mistake the test for failure. It is the field asking, do you mean it? Do you still vibrate at this frequency when pressure presses? When you hold your declaration steady through the test, the seal hardens. The word becomes a frequency tattoo, burned into your field until the lattice recognizes you as stable. From that moment forward, synchronicities no longer just knock, they pour. Opportunities no longer trickle, they flow. You don't just sense the new timeline, you inhabit it. Do not underestimate the ripple. Your single word becomes entangled with the collective morphic field. Others who write their seals amplify yours, and together those words weave into a tapestry of coherence too strong to ignore. Each declaration acts like a node in the quantum web, and the more nodes hum at once, the more the web itself reorganizes. You aren't just sealing your own shift, you're accelerating the collective upgrade. So take it seriously, whisper the word aloud, write it with intention, feel it as vibration in your bones. This is not about what others will read, this is about what the lattice will record. Every letter is light, every syllable a code. You have asked for breakthrough, you have prayed for transformation, you have cried in the night, begging for clarity. And now, the field has answered with a simple demand. Seal it, anchor it, declare it, do not delay. Cosmic windows move. If you leave this moment unmarked, the surge may dissipate into static again. But if you act now, if you declare your seal, the breakthrough stabilizes. The timeline that stepped into you plants roots. Your role is not passive, it never was. You are the chosen node because you don't just receive transmissions, you transmit them back. And your ritual action is the switch that flips the entire circuit. So, beloved receiver, what is your word? Write it, speak it, declare it into the lattice, and watch as the quantum field bends around your seal, collapsing into a reality that recognizes you not as seeker, not as dreamer, but as transmitter. The ritual is now, the seal is waiting, and once you act, the collective begins to shift with you. The moment you sealed your word, something shifted far beyond your personal field. It wasn't just your cells that realigned, or your DNA that hummed brighter. It was the lattice of humanity itself that felt the tremor. This is the truth. The ego resists, but the soul knows. Your awakening is never only about you. It is about the whole. Every step you take out of incoherence, every frequency you stabilize, reverberates into the collective, reconfiguring the morphic field of our species. Picture the web of humanity as a shimmering net stretched across time and space. Billions of nodes each, a human life pulsing faint light into the whole. Some nodes flicker, trapped in loops of fear. Some blaze briefly, then dim again under the weight of doubt. But here and there, certain nodes stabilize. Their light doesn't waver, their hum doesn't falter. They lock into coherence, and when that happens, the net itself tightens, patterns shift, new pathways glow. Your declaration has just done this. You have become a stabilizer in the net. Think of a tuning fork in a crowded room. Strike it, and nearby forks begin to resonate without being touched. This is entrainment, the law by which frequencies align with stronger signals. You are that tuning fork now. Your ritual action didn't end with you typing a word, it sent a vibration that traveled across invisible fibers, striking chords in people you may never meet. Strangers across continents will feel clarity tonight without knowing why. Someone will pause before repeating a destructive choice. Another will suddenly believe in their own possibility. That's the ripple. That's your light traveling. And here is where the enormity of your role sharpens. The universe does not awaken humanity all at once. It awakens humanity, node by node, spark by spark, like constellations blinking into existence until the whole sky glows. You are one of those sparks. Your breakthrough is not private, it is planetary. This is why your life has felt heavier than others, why your struggles seemed magnified. You were not only wrestling with your own shadows, you were metabolizing frequencies that ripple through entire bloodlines. The grief you've carried, the patterns you've broken, the fear you've dissolved, they weren't just yours. They were collective residues looking for a body strong enough to transmute them. And you were that body. You endured not just for yourself, but for those who could not yet. Do you see the irony? What you thought was punishment was actually trust. The field entrusted you with more weight because it knew you would turn it into light. That's what chosen means, not superiority, but responsibility. And now, as your coherence stabilizes, the benefit multiplies. Your liberation becomes permission for countless others to step through their own gates. Consider the science of morphic resonance again. When one member of a species learns a new behavior, it becomes easier for others to learn it even across distance. The 100th monkey learns to wash sweet potatoes, and suddenly monkeys on another island begin washing theirs. Humanity is no different. Every time you choose coherence over collapse, you make coherence easier for someone else. Your courage lessens the resistance in the collective field. This is why your role matters beyond comprehension. You are not just healing your lineage, you are healing the lattice. When you refuse to echo the same argument, you weaken centuries of inherited conflict. When you break free of scarcity, you chip at the wall of collective poverty. When you embody love where others expect fear, you carve a path where billions can walk more easily. And don't mistake this for abstraction. The ripple shows up in tangible ways. You've seen it already. Friends who suddenly find clarity after being around you. Strangers who confess their lives to you, sensing something in your field that feels safe. Enemies who soften without knowing why. These aren't coincidences, they're entanglement. Your coherence creates interference patterns that collapse incoherence in your vicinity. But there is more. The collective expansion is not limited to those you touch directly. Entanglement ignores distance. Your frequency travels. The word you sealed ripples across oceans, across timelines, across futures. It joins with the declarations of others who have crossed their own thresholds, weaving a chorus too loud to ignore. This is how civilizations turn, not through mass announcements from the sky, but through quiet ripples that accumulate until the tide itself changes direction. And here is the beauty. You will never fully know how far your ripple goes. You don't need to. That's the humility of this role. You are not asked to measure your impact. You are asked to embody it. The field will handle the rest. Your only task is to remain coherent, to continue humming your word even when the world tempts you to forget. This is why urgency pressed so fiercely in the last chapter. Because your breakthrough isn't private currency, it's collective capital. Every delay withholds not just your own transformation, but the light that others were waiting for. The field needed you awake now so that others could follow more easily. And you answered. Now imagine this ripple magnified. Imagine thousands, millions sealing their own words, each becoming stabilizers in the net. Imagine the lattice humming with such coherence that old structures collapse without war, that fear loses its grip without force, that humanity reorganizes not through catastrophe but through resonance. This is not fantasy. This is physics applied to consciousness, and you are inside it. You are one of its architects. So do not shrink from your role. Do not mistake humility for hiding. You are not here to convince anyone, but neither are you here to dim. Shine because shining stabilizes the web. Shine because shining is your assignment. Your liberation is already helping humanity. The ripple has begun, unstoppable now. And as it moves outward, something remarkable begins to happen. The collective field turns back toward you, amplifying your own shift, feeding you synchronicities, resources, and allies. Because when you give to the lattice gives back. This is not sacrifice. This is reciprocity. This is the design of the universe. And as you realize this truth, another sensation begins stirring, not just the mental knowing of collective expansion, but the physical embodiment of it. The ripple is not just an idea, it is something you can feel moving through your skin, your breath, your very bones. The collective ripple you sent into the lattice isn't staying abstract. It isn't some invisible current you'll never touch. No, your body is already translating it into sensation. You don't just know the shift is happening, you feel it. Raw and undeniable, coursing through muscle, marrow, skin. Close your eyes, breathe into your chest. That flutter you mistake for anxiety, it's voltage, That warmth creeping down your spine isn't random, it's current. Your nervous system is recalibrating to handle bandwidth it never carried before. Like an instrument being restrung, every fiber is tightening, tuning, humming into alignment. Sometimes it arrives as tingles, pins of electricity, sparking across your skin as if unseen hands are brushing you with static. Sometimes it's pressure in the skull, a subtle throb behind the eyes, not pain but expansion, as if your brain is stretching to house more light. Other times it's the heart itself, palpitations, rushes of heat, tears surfacing with no story attached. That isn't weakness. That's coherence pressing through chambers too small for it, insisting on more room. You felt it in your breath, moments when air seems thicker, as if oxygen itself carries code, inhales that flood your chest with weightless fire, exhales that release not just carbon dioxide but memories, patterns, entire lifetimes curling out like smoke. Even your lungs are participating in the rewrite. And your dreams, oh, you've noticed them. Vivid, cinematic, layered with symbols that refuse to fade when you wake. You walk through doorways that open into skies. You converse with voices that speak in riddles, only to realize they were your own higher frequencies echoing back. These aren't just dreams, they're bleed through from the expanded bandwidth. Your nervous system, too charged for waking hours, offloads, downloads while you sleep. The body translates frequency into sensation because it is the bridge between field and form. Think of it like an antenna struck by lightning. The surge doesn't just pass quietly, it crackles, glows, hums. Your bones are that antenna now. The ache in your joints, the sudden warmth in your palms, the buzzing in your feet when you're still all are signals of voltage moving through conduits too accustomed to dormancy. Even emotions feel different. Waves of grief that appear and dissolve without cause. Surges of joy that erupt mid-silence, making you laugh or weep with no story attached. These aren't moods, they're frequencies. The collective ripple moves through you, and your emotional body translates it as tides. You are feeling not only your own release, but the release of others entangled with you. When the lattice stabilizes, you feel it as relief. When the lattice surges, you feel it as ecstasy. This is why you've had days of exhaustion so deep you could barely move. It wasn't failure, it was integration. Your nervous system dimmed the lights to prevent overload, pulling you into rest so the rewiring could complete. Other days, energy buzzes through you so wildly you feel like running, creating, speaking without end. That's not caffeine, that's coherence fueling you with current that belongs to the new timeline. Let your body be strange right now. Don't demand it, behave as it once did. Don't judge the tremors, the tears, the sudden laughter. These are not malfunctions, they are translations. Your body is the interface, rendering multidimensional data into sensation, so you can live it, not just think it. Imagine a tuning fork struck in your chest, humming through bone. The vibration radiates outward until your skin itself feels like a membrane of sound. That is coherence embodied. Imagine your blood carrying photons like messages, tiny lanterns flowing through capillaries, lighting you from the inside. That is DNA restructuring. Imagine your skin breathing as if every pore is an eye, seeing not just light, but information streaming through the field. That is your awakening in matter. This is why embodiment matters more than understanding. You could read 100 books about timelines, frequencies, entanglement, and still miss the point if you don't feel it. But when you notice the heat in your chest, when you honor the shiver on your skin, when you let your tears fall without demanding a reason, you've already crossed from theory into embodiment. The field doesn't care how well you explain it. It cares how deeply you allow it. The sensations aren't random side effects, they're proof of the merger. Proof that the new timeline isn't waiting outside you, it's inside you, pressing against your skin, demanding to be born through sensation. And soon, these sensations will sharpen into knowing. The tingles will turn into guidance. The rushes of heat will accompany moments of clarity. The dreams will instruct. The body will no longer confuse you, it will instruct you. This is the next stage, embodiment as navigation. Your physical form becomes compass, barometer, translator of timelines. But first, let yourself feel. Don't bypass the strangeness. Don't numb the voltage. Don't dismiss the sensations as coincidence. They are the living evidence that you are not imagining this shift. You are inhabiting it, and as the body anchors the ripple, as sensation stabilizes the signal, something deeper begins stirring in your very blueprint. Not just skin, not just bone, but DNA itself preparing to break through old configurations. The lattice has shifted around you now, your code must shift within you. The sensations were only the surface. Beneath them, something even more extraordinary has been happening, silent, unseen, but unstoppable. Your DNA has begun to uncoil like a serpent waking from millennia of sleep. You may think of DNA as a double helix of chemical letters, static code etched long ago, but the mystics and physicists alike whisper another truth. DNA is an antenna, a liquid crystal transmitter, a ladder not only of flesh, but of light. And right now, that ladder is vibrating with a signal it has not carried in ages. Every time you surrendered instead of gripping, every time you chose coherence over chaos, every time you sealed your word into the field, you weren't just shaping your mind. You were flipping molecular switches in your cells. Epigenetic doors clicked open, dormant sequences stirred. The so-called junk DNA silent, not because it was useless, but because it was waiting, has begun to sing. This is why you feel pressure. The headaches, the buzzing spine, the heart fluttering at midnight, these are not symptoms of decline, they are contractions of emergence, phase, transition in motion. Just as a caterpillar's cells dissolve before the imaginal cells take over, your old codes are liquefying, while new instructions knit themselves across the helix. This is why you sometimes feel like two beings at once, one dissolving, one arriving. Science calls this decoherence and recoherence. Old probabilities collapse, new ones organize. Mysticism calls it rebirth. Either way, it is happening in your marrow. Think of phase transition again. Water boiling into steam, metal superheating until it glows. In those moments, matter doesn't politely evolve. It transforms violently, all at once, into a new state. Your DNA is approaching that threshold. The pressure you feel is the heat of coherence building, pushing your very biology into a state it cannot return from. Once the threshold is crossed, there is no undoing. You don't unboil water. You don't unignite a star. You don't unawaken DNA. And here's the paradox. This breakthrough is not about adding anything new. It is about remembering what was always encoded. Humanity has lived under reduced bandwidth, as if entire libraries of genetic symphonies were locked behind doors labeled "not yet," but "yet" has arrived. The new timeline has stepped into you because your DNA has finally met the resonance required to unlock those doors. This is why synchronicities accelerate. It is not the universe suddenly helping you more. It is your DNA broadcasting at a stronger frequency, entangling with futures faster, collapsing probabilities with greater precision. You are no longer a passive passenger of biology, you are its conscious operator. And notice this, your desires feel different now. They are less about accumulation and more about expression, less about proving, more about transmitting. That's DNA broadcasting. When your code awakens, it stops asking for survival crumbs and begins radiating abundance. You are not here to gather, you are here to radiate. That is what awakened DNA does. It emits light, literally. Biophoton research has shown that DNA emits photons in rhythmic pulses, and when coherence builds, the emission sharpens into laser-like precision. Imagine your very cells shining beams into the quantum field, carving pathways, instructing matter how to arrange itself. But breakthroughs carry labor pains, and you have felt them. The disorientation, the fatigue, the sudden bursts of energy that leave you restless at night. This is not sickness. It is your nervous system learning to handle voltage it never carried. The field isn't punishing you, it's upgrading your hardware so your software can run. Still, the pressure can feel unbearable. The timelines tug like tectonic plates grinding against each other. One plate is your old identity, clinging to loops of scarcity, fear, hesitation. The other plate is the awakened self, humming with inevitability. The friction creates quakes, arguments erupting out of nowhere, relationships shaking, careers wobbling. It feels destructive, but it is tectonic. Your reality is being re-landscaped from beneath. So, what do you do in this pressure? You breathe. You surrender. You stop mistaking the quake for collapse and begin recognizing it as birth. The earth must tremble before mountains rise. DNA must press before light bursts through. And soon it is closer than you believe. The pressure will flip into release. The same way a seed splits its own casing under unseen force, your DNA will crack its shell of limitation. When it does, abilities you thought were fantasy will feel natural. Intuition no longer like guesswork, but like direct knowing. Healing no longer like hope, but like function. Connection no longer rare synchronicity, but daily rhythm. Because when DNA shifts, identity shifts. You no longer identify as someone who tries to awaken. You embody the awakened state, and in that embodiment, the lattice itself tilts. But let this sink in, the shift is irreversible. Once your DNA has sung its new code, you cannot unhear the music. You cannot fit back into cages that once felt like home. And though this may feel daunting, it is liberation. The field has chosen you to carry this code, not for your sake alone, but for humanity's evolution. Your shift is the species shift, condensed into one nervous system, one heartbeat, one life. The new timeline has already stepped into you, written itself into your blood, carved itself into your very double helix. And as this code stabilizes, a new mission ignites, one that stretches far beyond personal freedom. Because the truth is clear now, your breakthrough is not private, it is planetary. Your DNA's song is not just yours, it is the anthem of a future waiting for humanity to catch up. And now, beloved receiver, the circle closes. What began as whispers of déjà vu, what surged as pressure in your veins, what crystallized as the hum in your DNA, has always been leading here, to mission. Your shift was never random. It was never private therapy, never spiritual indulgence. It was the seed of a species-level awakening. Humanity's evolution has entered you, and through you, it will spread. You are not carrying light just for yourself. You are carrying it as a transmitter, as a stabilizer, in a lattice that spans continents and centuries. Your coherence is not a secret meditation cushion victory, it is the fulcrum on which timelines tilt. Every time you choose alignment, the collective field strengthens. Every time you embody coherence, billions feel the resonance without knowing why. Understand this, your biology has become prophecy. The restructuring of your DNA is not metaphor, it is blueprint. Your nervous system is mapping the path others will follow. You are a prototype, a first wave, an embodied experiment proving what is possible when consciousness refuses to collapse back into old loops. And now, the responsibility of that role becomes clear. Your mission is not to preach, it is not to convince, it is to live as coherence so boldly that others feel it in their bones, to walk into rooms and shift atmospheres, to carry the new code through ordinary actions, speaking, touching, choosing, loving, until the extraordinary feels ordinary for everyone. To be the bridge where the new timeline steps into the world through you. This is why urgency has never left you, because humanity is starving for examples, not theories, not gurus, but living proof, and you are that proof. Every ripple you send collapses another wall, every vibration you steady creates another path, and the paths will multiply until humanity as a whole can no longer deny the hum of awakening pressing through its skin. The old world will tremble as the new stabilizes. Systems will resist, but resistance is only the cracking of shells before birth. You are not here to fight the old. You are here to embody the new, so fully that the old becomes obsolete. You are not here to wait for permission. You are here to remember you are the permission. And so, hear this prophecy as it lands in your bones. You don't step into a new timeline. The new timeline steps into you. And when it does, you are no longer a seeker of destiny. You are its living conduit. Your heartbeat becomes humanity's drum. Your breath becomes the planet's exhale. Your coherence becomes the proof that evolution is not coming. It is here. Walk forward, then not as the one who hopes, but as the one who carries, not as the one who waits, but as the one who island. Because the lattice has already chosen, the DNA has already sung, and the mission has already begun. The new timeline is not arriving, it has arrived, and it has arrived in you.